Once upon a time, in the small village of Medianapolis, lived a mother pig who had 3 little pigs. The 3 little pigs grew so big that their mother decided it was time for them to move out and find their way in the world.
Listen close, little pigs. Medianapolis is a dangerous place, filled with hyper-concentrated systems and centralized production of meaning. You must build safe houses, expand expressive freedoms, and fight for a piece of the normative pie. And remember, always beware of the big bad wolf. He is the one who will blow your houses down and try to maintain control over the distribution of meaning. Take care that he does not catch you.
The 3 little pigs, taking their mother's word to heart, set out on their journey. Soon, they met a man who was carrying a television, and the first little pig spoke to him.
Please, sir, I would like to build a house of television. I suppose you know quite a lot about television. Will you help me?
The man smiled and agreed, and he told the first little pig how to build the perfect house of television. Then, the man muttered something about staying the course and went on his way. And the first little pig built his house and was very pleased with himself. The other little pigs left the house of television and continued down the road. Soon, they met a man carrying a newspaper, and the second little pig spoke to him.
Please, sir, I would like to build a house of press. I suppose you know quite a lot about press. Will you help me?
The man smiled and agreed, and told the second little pig how to build the perfect house of press. Then the man muttered something about criminal fraud and went on his way. And the second little pig built his house and was very pleased with himself. The third little pig left the house of press and continued down the road. Soon, he met a man carrying a computer, and he spoke to him.
Please, sir, I would like to build a house of web. I suppose you know quite a lot about the web. Will you help me?
The man smiled and agreed, and he told the third little pig how to build the perfect house of web. Then the man muttered something about the appropriation of Barbies and went on his way. And the third little pig built his house and was very pleased with himself. The next day, the wolf came along the road. He came to the house of television that the first little pig had built. When the first little pig saw the wolf coming, he ran inside his house and shut the door. The wolf knocked on the door and said, little pig, let me come in."
Not by the compensatory power on John Kenneth Galbraith's chinny chin chin.
"My dear little pig, your house is no match for my compensatory power. In the interest of profits, it is useless to try to stop me. How would your house stay standing if you avoided me and took up controversial issues? Nobody would visit your house, and you would lose all profit. My dear little pig, it pays to conform. So I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house of television down, and the wolf ate up the first little pig. The next day, the wolf walked further along the road. He came to the house of press. When the second little pig saw the wolf coming, he ran inside his house and shut the door. The wolf knocked on the door and said, little pig, let me come in."
Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin.
"My dear little pig, it is your own chin that has made you powerless against me. Self-censorship gives me the power to blow your house of press down. You withhold articles or facts for fear of displeasing readers or advertisers. Journalist social codes of morals and ethics. These are ways that your house of press structures itself in a system of self-censorship. So I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." And the big bad wolf huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house of press down, and he ate up the second little pig. The next day, the wolf came by to the house of web. Little pig, let me come in."
Not by the dominant hegemonic meaning on your chinny chin chin.
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." So he huffed and he puffed, but he could not blow the house down. The wolf, somewhat perturbed, began to take a closer look at the house. what he found were pieces of the house of web that seemed easier to blow out than others. So he huffed and he puffed, and while a few of these pieces fell out, the house itself would not fall. And the pig looked at the wolf and laughed and laughed. "Silly wolf, you don't understand the range and scope of my house. You may be able to blow pieces out of my house, but I have a whole pile of bricks ready to replace them. For every brick you blow, I have the endless capability to produce more. Not to mention, the effort necessary to blow out one brick is much greater than the effort needed to replace one. You could try blowing them out one by one, but the production and distribution of my bricks falls way outside the range and limits of your control." And the wolf, looking furious, said nothing. The following day, the wolf came by a second time to find, much to his surprise, that the house had doubled in size. Little pig, let me come in." "Not by the bias on Harold Innes's chinny chin chin. You have a bias towards the commodification of Medianapolis. You want all the houses to be the same size, shape, and color. You want all your structures to have the same patterns. You want to condition the houses into a perfect commodified village. Well, Lawrence Lessig tells me one day I'll be able to blow all the houses down. He said all I need is to get the codes for the houses. Once I have the codes, I will have social control over the house of web." Well, Lawrence Lessig underestimates my bias. You see, my bias is towards the decommodification of my house. I don't want the houses looking the same. I want expressive freedoms. Lessig didn't know that I could produce so many different kinds of bricks. My bricks don't want to be part of your centralized village. My bias is against control." And the wolf, looking furious, said nothing. The next day, the wolf came by to the house of web for a third time. To his surprise, the house had not only doubled in size again, but other houses had already sprung up around it. Little pig, let me come in." "Not by the authoritative force on your chinny chin chin." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." But the sheer size and number of houses was simply too overwhelming for the big bad wolf, and the third little pig just laughed and laughed. "Silly wolf, you're only here because of the relationship of control that exists between us. You're only big and bad because of the power of authoritative force to blow the other houses down. My house of web has so many bricks, I can build as many other houses as I want. It would be impossible for you to huff and puff and blow them all down. And if you can't blow them all down, you aren't really so big and bad. And if you aren't big and bad, then no power relation exists between us. So you better be leaving, because your huffing and puffing is just no good here." And the wolf just hung his head, and he knew that the pig was right. And while he huffed and puffed, he was never able to blow the house of web down. The harder he seemed to try, the more the bricks resisted, and the little pig just laughed and lived happily ever after.